guys, welcome back to another episode of The Ride. It is Nicole.
And this is Michaela.
And this week we are talking with Brianna Noble, who you guys may have heard of her, you may have not, depends on how active you are on social media. We came across her when we saw an image of her riding a horse through a Black Lives Matter protest in Oakland, California, actually. And the thing that really caught my eye, and Michaela's as well, is that she is an amazing rider. She has such a really pretty seat. Her horse is really quiet, really broke, and you know, we make note that like she was very aware of how her horse acts in crowds, and she actually went to the protest before it actually started so that her horse wasn't involved in anything before it got maybe, you know, overcrowded or just, you know, a hazard for horse riding. But she's so much more than that photo, but I'm so excited that we came across it in our social media feeds because she's a really cool person doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah, she really is. I keep telling Nicole that it's amazing how in a still photo, you know, the two of us were able to see how great of a rider she is. And just listening to her talk and listening to all of the cool things that she's doing, and beforehand, before we even pressed record to start the interview, she just had so many cool things to say that really resonated well with Nicole and myself. And I know that it would resonate well with a lot of our listeners, and you know, you guys would agree with a lot of what she has to say because she's just a true horsewoman. And I'm glad that we were able to find her and talk to her because it's people like her that we want to have on this podcast. Some people who are doing cool things and who are talented riders as well.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's really important, especially right now in this time that we're in, that we focus on diversity. And I think that's what Brianna's doing. And she's doing a lot for at-risk youth and underprivileged youth and children who don't necessarily have access to horses or, you know, riding and being in a barn. And we're noticing that it really helps them build their character and become really great people. And so that's really the big message that she wants to get across is that's what program she's working on and trying to build up. And she just wants people to know that, you know, there are a lot of people out there who want to work hard and want to get involved in the horses. They just don't have the money or the ability to get there on their own.
Yeah, and she explains how important horses can be in developing our youth. And towards the end of the podcast, she shares a really, really cool story about a youth kid that she was working with and his story about how he really broke out of his shell. And she said there are so many stories like that, but be sure to listen to the end of the podcast and listen to that amazing story.
Yeah, that whole thing, that story that Michaela's talking about in particular, it gave me chills. And like, I was on the verge of tears, and I'm not a crier. I don't get emotional on a lot of stuff. And that really hit me because it's, you know, we forget that there are ways to, you know, communicate with horses that we can't do as, you know, human to human interaction or whatever. And horses just allow us to break down that wall and just, you know, show our true selves. And yeah, that was an amazing story. And we were so happy that Brianna came on the podcast. Our dear friend Warwick Schiller actually shared that photo that we had originally seen, and he has also been in talks with her, and we're so impressed with, she's so young and she's doing so much, and you know, she just wanted to get her feelings out there, and her way of showing that was on a horse, and I love that.
For sure. So as much as we could continue to talk about Brianna, because Nicole and I are huge fans of her, we should probably dive into our current events section.
So coronavirus continues to adjust our 2020 show schedule. The Run for a Million, which we had talked about in a previous podcast, was still on track to go forward. We had seen press releases saying that they were getting ready to start selling tickets and that it was going to be happening. Well, they've just come out and announced that it is officially canceled for this year. So they, you know, a big part of the Run for a Million is the Last Cowboy TV show that goes along with it. And because of all of the quarantines and the travel restrictions, they could not film. They couldn't get their video teams out to do the reality show that goes with the Run for a Million.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people are upset that the Run for a Million is canceled, but I think it's so important to note that the TV show plays a huge part in the event because the whole purpose is to bring eyes to a Western sport that many people don't think of. A lot of people, when they think of a Western riding sport, they think of rodeo. And there is so much more to Western riding than just rodeo. So the TV show brings new eyes to the reining sport and, now the cow horse. So I think being able to have that TV show tying in with it is super critical. And, I give them props for, thinking of it that way more so than, it's just the pandemic that caused them to cancel.
Yeah, I don't know the whole ins and outs, but I do know that Paramount Network does help fund the Run for a Million because their TV show that the Last Cowboy is on their TV network. Taylor Sheridan does it, and he also directs and wrote Yellowstone, which is starting back up. I think by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be in like its second or third week of the TV show, and we're really excited about that because I'm a huge Kevin Costner fan, but who isn't? Yeah, Paramount I think helps funds it, and it's obviously like it's based around that TV show, like Michaela said, where it's to teach people that there's so much more to the NFR, which is the only thing that you really see on TV anymore outside of like the hunter jumper stuff that you might see at the Olympics or that, but yeah, like the reining and the cow horse have such true cowboy tradition to them. And I just think that a lot of people don't realize it. And Michaela had mentioned the cow horse. They were going to do an invitational, which was brand new. And I know I was super excited about that because my journey is going into the cow horse stuff. And so I was really happy to see two sports that I really love in one show, but hopefully they'll do it again next year.
Yeah, I'm sure that they will do it next year, and I really look forward to it. And I hope that, you're able to attend as, somebody who's just watching and you're not working, because I know how much you love those and you've been wanting to go and see it. So that would be totally awesome. So speaking of horse shows and events changing and, doing different things, the World Championship Appaloosa show and the World Championship Appaloosa Youth show are now being held together, which is pretty cool, that they're actually going forward with those events and not canceling, and they're able to combine them to still have that breed show.
Yeah, it's going to take place October 29th through November 8th at the Will Rogers Equestrian Center in Fort Worth. Obviously, we are in the end of June. By the time this podcast comes out, it'll be July, I believe. So things can still change. We're seeing shows getting canceled or rescheduled or moved because of coronavirus. We're not out of the weeds with coronavirus. So, things might change. But as of right now, the Appaloosa Association is planning on merging those two shows and having their world show together, which, it'll be interesting to see how it does. I hope that it brings some really good numbers, because it's really sad to see all these shows canceled and all these big shows. And I know a lot of these like youth kids have worked really hard to get ready, and some of them are in their last year and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things. I'm still younger, so I can kind of still feel for those youth kids, especially the ones in their last year, that this is their event. This is what they look forward to. And so many of these events are being canceled. But I think, the events and the shows are doing right by the youth kids, and most of them are allowing them to compete again and, do different things. And each breed and each association has their own terms that they're working with for the youth kids. And I think that that's really great, because the youth are what really is going to make the Western sports industry just keep growing. And we have to keep them in mind if we want to keep expanding and doing our best.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of the Appaloosa Association, the board agreed on a permanent basis to raise youth eligibility from 18 and under to 19 and under beginning in 2021. So all those kids who don't get the chance to maybe compete this year, they'll be able to do it next year because they're raising the eligibility, which I think is great, because you're still a kid when you're 19. I know, like, I was still very much, yes, you're 18 and you have rights that you didn't as a 17 and under, but you're still a kid. And I think it's great that they're allowing 19-year-olds to stay in that division.
Yeah, for sure. But now kind of moving on and shifting gears back to some cow horse talk, because Nicole and I, clearly, we really love cow horses, apparently. And also the time is just perfect because the Derby just happened for the NRCHA. And we have some results for that, which is pretty cool. So, Nicole, I'll let you kind of read off some results and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, kind of going back to horse shows having to adjust and pivot with coronavirus, they actually went to Scottsdale, Arizona for the horse show this year, which it normally is not in Scottsdale. Normally, I believe it's in Paso Robles. So that was a change, and I think it was heavily involved with coronavirus. But no, Justin Wright won the open division, and I got to watch his run. I didn't get to see his rein work or anything, but I got to see his fence work, and it was insane.
Really? I haven't seen anything of it. I actually haven't tuned in to watch anything of it. I guess I've been living under a rock since I've been working from home and, just kind of living in my own little world. So I haven't really watched anything of it, but I need to go back and watch some of these runs because, especially Justin, because he had 5 horses in the finals. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, he was super busy. And it looked like there was quite a few people who had multiple horses in the finals. And you can go to the NRCHA's website to see all of their scores and all of the, top 10 and whatnot. But no, Justin showed Scooter Cat and his run was amazing. I had actually just happened to tune in a ride before he was getting ready to go down the fence. So I literally came in and was able to watch that. And I was like, oh my, that run was insane. And you're like, oh my God, this is what they've been doing. Holy moly. And he ended up winning with that score, but it was a beautiful run. And the NRHA Derby's going on right now, so there are horse shows happening. That one's taking place in Oklahoma City. It's going on as we're recording this, and so maybe we'll have results in a future podcast. But yeah, it sounds like a lot of the big shows are trying to work around the coronavirus issues. But I've have friends at the Derby right now, and the reigning Derby, and they were saying that stalls are kind of segregated and people are kind of staying to themselves. And so I think they're trying really hard to keep things safe and sanitary and still put on a really nice horse show.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering. I haven't been to any big shows or anything like that lately, and I was just wondering how that was working. I've just only been to local barrel races, and those are different. So I was just wondering how they were making it happen with hundreds of horses at an event and keeping it within the requirements. And different states have different requirements, so I guess that plays into a factor. But it's interesting to see how everything is moving forward and how everybody is handling it. And I really have to give props to the horse associations and everything for doing what they're doing and being able to still put on these events despite a pandemic happening.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, give props to the people that are putting on these shows, because that they are working really, really hard to make sure that everybody stays safe and healthy and doing what they can to make sure that nothing bad happens. But kind of going off into our normal regular horse life, I worked at Buffalo for the first time the other day, and that was crazy.
Yeah, you kind of told me a little bit about that. And for our listeners that don't know, my parents raised them. So I have a bit of a backstory with them. So when Nicole tells me some of these stories, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy, but so cool. And, I bet it was a lot of fun working one.
Yeah, Michaela is not a fan of buffalo because they've attacked her in the pasture. And I had no idea that buffalo were, first of all, so fast. Second of all, they jump really high. And so you have to be really careful that they don't learn that they can jump out of their, their fencing and whatnot. But as I journey into the cow horse stuff, I'm learning that a lot of people use buffalo. The ones that we have at the barn are yearlings, so they're still very small, and you can kind of train them to play the game a little bit. But apparently buffalo will play the game for about 3 years, whereas when you get a herd of cattle in, you can get about 3 weeks out of them before they start figuring it out and kind of cheating you.
Which is so interesting because, I've grown up around the buffalo and they are so intelligent. So I would have assumed that, their time span would have been much shorter than cattle because, they probably would have gotten bored with it and just over it. So I think that that's really interesting that they actually last a lot longer, but it just shows how cool of animals that they really are, because despite me having a strong dislike, even maybe a hate towards buffalo, I still think that they are beautiful, wonderful, super intelligent animals that, they're super, super cool to see in general, just, let alone work them on a horse.
Yeah, I think I love them because they're so primal. Like you just get that very like just primal instinct around them, and that's kind of how they are. But no, it was really interesting. As I'm learning more about all this, apparently it's the buffalo are really good for the seasoned horses too. Younger horses, they can't read the buffalo as well as they can read the cattle, so that's kind of something that you have to work around. But it's really great for the seasoned horses, which I'm really thankful I'm riding a seasoned horse who knows what he's doing, and he's been a huge babysitter with helping me because I couldn't imagine having a green horse, and I have a pretty extensive riding background, but I couldn't imagine going on a green horse working cattle as a green cow horse rider because there's so much you have to think about, and the way that you ride them are so different from the way you would an all-arounder or even a reiner. And so, but yeah, it's they use them a lot for some of their more finished horses, but they are really fast.
Yeah, they are. They actually, I'm trying to recall. I'm pretty sure they can run up to 35 miles an hour, if not faster. They are crazy fast animals, which is, a cool thing, and how it's so helpful in the cow horse event. It really probably helps, teach your horses to keep up with them and quicken their feet up a little bit.
Yeah, and you just that you have to you can't put the pressure on them like you would a cow, so you kind of have to stay out of their bubble and kind of gauge where you are against them. So it's super fascinating. I can't wait to do it again and just keep evolving in that. And I'm trying to write a blog. I keep getting sidetracked with other tasks, but I'm trying to write a blog on it, so maybe by the time this comes out I'll have a blog to go with it.
Yeah, and maybe another time you can get a video of it, because I think personally that would be really cool to watch on video. Even if it was just a short little snippet of it happening, I think that would be really cool to just see and share with our audience.
Anyway, that's a little bit of the current events that are going on right now and some of our horse life that's happening as well. But let's jump into this really cool interview because I think y'all are going to love it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Ride Podcast. Today, we are joined with special guest Brianna Noble, who you might have seen from some social media posts circulating around some of today's events that are going on in our country and the world currently. And Nicole and myself first noticed her from a still photo, where in that still photo, we could tell just how great of a rider Brianna was. And then from there, we learned more about her story and what she is doing. And we just knew that we had to talk to her. So thank you so much, Brianna, for joining us today.
Hi, how are you guys doing today?
We're great.
We first found out about Brianna is through a Black Lives Matter protest that was going on in California. She rode her horse through the protest before it actually got started. I feel like it's really important to note that like you were extremely safe during all of this, and your horse is extremely broke to it. You do the parades and all that stuff, but there's an image that's going around of you at the protest, and that really attracted to me to who you are as a person. And as I got to know you even more through your social media, I was just like, this girl is so cool. She does the jumping. She takes these younger horses who didn't have the chance to be horses that they could be, and just working with them. I mean, you're doing the parades, you're doing the obstacle courses, you're doing trail stuff, and then you're also doing a lot for your community, which is so huge in the equine industry.
Yeah, no, I do want to stress as well that safety was a very big thing for me, and why I chose to go to the protest and how I did it. I actually parked really, really far away. And I walked, down the street to the protest, and the protest was scheduled to start at 8, and I was there at about 6, maybe 6:30. And as it just began, I didn't want to be stuck around, large crowds. So as it began, I was headed the opposite direction, heading home. So yeah, that was a big thing for me, and I'm to do all of that. This has been an amazing experience.
We've seen so much of you recently, mostly Instagram and Facebook and stuff. And actually, last episode we had Warwick Schiller on, and you two have kind of made an acquaintance through all of this new stuff. And we were just kind of wondering what kind of advice he had given you through all of this newfound social media.
Yeah, I mean, Warwick reached out to me, and you should have seen the fangirling that was going on. I mean, I got a message and it popped up Warwick Schiller. And I was like, Warwick Schiller? And I'm in the car with my husband. I was like, oh, Warwick Schiller just messaged me. Oh my God, look, I wonder what he's going to say. I mean, I was, oh, the smile on my face. I think my face was about to break. And then I opened it up and he kind of started talking back and forth with me a little bit. And I was a kid in a candy store, so honored that he reached out to me. He's somebody that I always looked up to, especially in my younger years, the videos and stuff that you would see, and aspiring to be a horseman myself. And so for him to reach out to me and offer me the bit of advice he did was very important to me. And the biggest thing that he wanted to stress was to take care of myself through all of this. And I want to be sure that I heed that advice, because I mean, as horse people, and especially someone that didn't really come from a lot, I've been hungry to have my horse. I've definitely gone without eating to be sure that my mare had food. And even with all of this, I'm working really hard because I want to see a lasting program in my community. And I don't want kids to have to scrape so hard to come up behind me, So I just know that you can't really help anybody else until you can help yourself. So I want to be mindful that I do heed his advice and just remember that oh crap, I haven't eaten today. Make sure you do that. I know I've got a couple more horses to work and trying to get the logistics with business set up so we can make sure the program with the kiddos is running smoothly. But remember to eat. Make sure that you got more than hours of sleep last night. I will definitely be listening or trying my best to, because we know how that goes.
I have to say that Warwick was also fangirling over you when we told him that we were talking to you. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, he was so excited when we told him that we were going to have you on an episode. He was like, oh my gosh, no way. And we're like, yeah, we're super excited too.
You have a really cool story, and we love that you're bringing diversity to the equine world. But let's talk a little bit about how you actually got involved with horses to begin with. I know in some other interviews I've seen with you, you've said you've been riding your whole life.
Yeah. Well, my big sister, 9 years older than me, and she grew up, in the horse industry, loving horses as well. So she would work and clean stalls for, to scrape together lessons for herself. And my parents didn't really have money for childcare, so my summers were spent being my sister's responsibility. So that means we'd get up in the morning and, I remember walking to the bus stop and taking the bus, all the way up the hill. And we used to have to walk up this hill that I hated. Oh, this hill was awful. And it's straight up and down pretty much. And it's about a 3/4 of a mile walk to get to the barn from the bus stop. So we used to do that, multiple times a week. And I would sit and hang around the barn and, get little tasks to do myself. And I'd watch my sister ride. And I'd watch her jump, and I thought jumping was like the coolest thing ever. So I started riding behind her and grew up kind of sort of in pony club. I did all the lower ratings, but then, I couldn't ever go any higher because I didn't even have money to sponsor a horse to even get a C1, So, but yeah, I grew up right behind my sister. I'm so glad that I spent those summers in barns with her, and that kind of gave me my start.
Yeah, so you ride English and Western, which is, something to be admired because not a lot of people ride both. And personally, I think that having the background in both types of riding really gives you an advantage. So what kind of, thought process goes through your training methods using both of those types of riding?
I don't really think of things as an English or Western thing. I think of it as a horsemanship type thing. When people ask me what I do, I never just feel like, oh, I'm a hunter jumper, or I do this or that. I just say I'm a horsewoman, because to me, horsemanship is a language that transcends all disciplines. And if you're a horseman and you understand how to have a dialogue with a horse, then it doesn't matter what kind of horse. You can go to every country in the world and sit on a horse and be able to convert it and get something done. So for me, once I really learned that and how to communicate with horses, it doesn't really matter what saddle I set on a horse's back, being someone that doesn't come from an affluent, rich family, or, it's not so much that I don't want to choose a discipline or that, I want to do both things. It's just kind of more so out of necessity. Is as a horseman, I can sit on anything. I don't, if that meant that I could get a job loping some horses, in a cutting barn, cool, I can do that. If that means that now I have a chance to, ride 10 jumpers a day, cool, I can do that. Maybe, now I'm sitting on horses and, I can get these horses broken, do obstacles. Yeah, I can do that because I have to be flexible in terms of how I figure out just how to eat, so horseman has really allowed me a great space to do that, to say that I can be fairly welcome and just walk into a barn and, try to get some work or something and just kind of be a horseman across the board and be like, hey, I may not understand the ins and outs of what you want with reining, but if you show me, I can sit it and I can ride it. So that's kind of how I think about that.
Oh yeah, we totally relate to that. And I think that's, we have a lot of people on this podcast that are very similar in the sense that they, they didn't grow up showing the nicest horses in the world. They grew up riding whatever they could, and it makes them become the horsemen that they are. And I know, like how you said, you go to a reining barn, you might not know the ins and outs of that, but if you show me, I can try and do it, and I can figure out, what I'm doing to get by. And I feel you there, because I'm trying to learn how to ride cow horses, and I did the all around for 20 years. And, when you are moving a cow horse, you're using your inside leg to push their, hip this way and that way. And you don't do that with an all arounder. And but you have to, having that. Yeah. And just having that basic understanding of just being able to ride, it helps so much.
Yeah. And I feel like that's also almost the skill that sets you apart nowadays, or at least that's what I found is, I might not be the best rider in each discipline. I definitely strive to better myself in any opportunity I can get. But one thing that I've noticed that makes me different when I walk into a barn is the fact that I really can have that conversation on a basic level with the horse. And I feel like that's something that not a lot of people are able to do nowadays, where, I've learned, I don't think that I would have ever learned to have that conversation in depth with the horse until I started working with some wild and feral stuff and stuff that's not never seen a person before. And there's something to be said about walking into the pen with a feral stallion and trying to make something of it. For sure.
Yeah, so going off of those types of horses that you work with, what kind of drew you to working with them? I know, some people prefer to just take in client horses. So why did you go to the feral and wild horses for project horses?
Out of necessity, this, like I said, is I might have all these big dreams and things that I want to do, but at the end of the day, I just have to eat. I can have this love and this passion, and maybe I can go and get a job at working at an event barn or in a hunter jumper barn, but like if I can't afford to eat and I can't afford to just pay my gas to get to the store while I'm working at the barn, then like it's not something that's sustainable as a person that doesn't have a support system to even support you with food and that sort of deal to make a real life of yourself as a rider. I met my mentor, and I call her my barn. And her name is Marlene Fultz, and she's probably been the most influential horsewoman in my life ever. And she sat down, and when I met her, she told me like it was. And she was like, Bree, you make $900 every 2 weeks. You ain't going to the Olympics, honey. That's stupid. And she didn't mean that it was actually stupid, but she said, honey, you're not going to be working and scraping underneath these trainers and actually go somewhere because you're not like everyone else. She didn't mean in terms of color of my skin, but I don't have money. I don't have backing. I'm a vet tech, like this is the salary that I make and what I'm given. But she said, I'm going to show you a way that you can work a quarter of a hard as you work now, and you can make money. And I said, okay. She was like, you're going to help me ride horses, and you're going to be able to quit your job, and you're going to be able to make a living in the horse world. And I was like, okay, crazy old lady, sure I am. And so she had this old quarter horse, and he was probably like 15, 16 years old, not the best looking dude ever, kind of like wonky chin. He had a split tongue. He was like an old cowboy's old rope horse or something like that. He was that horse that was so done with people. You put him in an arena, good luck catching that thing. You're going to be chasing him all over the place. Doesn't want anything to do with you. You get on, he thinks you're supposed to high ho silver into the sunset. Like, ugly sort of Bayron color, bleached out. You know, she looked at me and she said, "We're going to sell that horse for 10 grand." I said, "Oh," I laughed. I laughed so hard here. I said, "That horse right there. You're telling me that you're going to sell that horse as a trail horse for $10,000. And she said, "Yes, you're going to help me." So I just said, "Okay, crazy lady. You know, you're going to pay me to ride these horses. It's going to help me eat. I got your back. Let's do this." And you know what? We rode that horse all over. And that horse was a real lesson for me, you know, because she said, "We're just going to make him safe." She's like, "This is something that people do pay for nowadays, you know, just giving him these experiences. Let's do the parades. We use him for lessons. We get on and make sure he stands at that mounting block and he's safe to walk around town. He's safe to go out on the trail ride by yourself." And, you know, all of these different things that are just really foundational, but that people don't so much always think about anymore. And you know what? We spent a summer on that horse, had a great time. We did trail trials. We traveled all over the place with him. And at the end of that, that woman sold that horse for about that much money in like 2 days. I was I was surprised. It was not even funny. She said, "Look, I know you don't want to do trail horses, but here's the deal. Do you see the amount of time that we spent with him? We were really good to the horse. We had a great time doing it. The horse went from a horse that you could not catch to a horse that's in your pocket and follows you everywhere. You felt good about it. The horse gets a phenomenal home." And she's like, "I'm splitting this money with you. Here's $5,000 for your time." I said, "Oh man, I guess that like me running around as a assistant trainer, working student, doing this whole sort of deal is probably not what's going to get me closer to my dream." So that experience right there is kind of was like, okay, I can feel really good about myself here. I can do the right thing with horses. I'm learning so much about horsemanship and I'm getting my paycheck paid. So that's kind of why I kind of drifted into doing what I'm doing.
How do you find the horses that you take in and kind of turn into these really broke, quiet trail horses that can do about anything? How are you finding them, or are they just coming to you?
Recently, a lot of stuff just comes from me because I tend to, if you look me up online, selling horses can get a little hard if you've ever done it. You know, it's a little taxing mentally. So what I do is I'd make these really crazy long sale videos. So I basically videotape everything that I do, all these adventures that I go on, you know, when we're out on the ranch riding or we go to different trails, you know, I show every single thing that a horse does in about 10 minutes there. So I've really gotten this following of people really liking watching my adventures with these horses, you know, from the beginning to the end. And so having this huge following, I get calls all the time. "Hey, Bree, there's this horse that's in this situation. You know, the owner died and it's broke, never been handled, you know, free to you. Are you interested in taking it?" And so I get a lot of those phone calls now, but generally if I'm looking for something, Craigslist is the best place to go. You know, you find horses all over Northern California where people are just like, "Yeah, I never got around to this horse. It's just sitting in my backyard. I think I got a halter on him like 5 years ago. He's 8, you know, don't know anything else." Those are the ads that I kind of go after. And sometimes you pull up to people's backyards and you go, "Oh God," you know, you poor horse, and you take them home and yeah, that's pretty much how I find them. You know, I've gotten some from like herd dispersals where, you know, there's sort of like privately owned herds of wild horses and are looking to get rid of stuff. So like those are the guys that I go after. And also it goes back to, you know, not having money. Like that's all I can afford. I would love to, you know, go out and get really nice colts that cost a couple $1,000s to invest into, but these horses are horses that I get for free. Or I might, you know, here's $500 or something like that, you know, and I'm able to put all that time and work on them to make my paycheck at the end of all of it.
Well, and I think it's really great that you're giving these horses a second chance. You know, a lot of horses get pushed to the side because they're not the best, you know, show prospect or you know, they're, you know, they might be a little looky and the person that owns them can't handle a horse that might jump sideways. And then, you know, bad things end up happening to these horses. But I love that there are people out there like you who take in these horses that might have a tough background or just got pushed to the side, and you know, you're able to turn them into a horse like Dapper Dan, who you can take into a protest and know that you're going to be safe.
Yeah, definitely. And Dapper is king of all of that because he's about the hardest horse I've ever done through all of this, which was not really expected. When I went out and I went to see him to see if I wanted to take him home. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a steal of a deal. He's big, he's pretty, he like walks right up to me in the arena and he's like, hey human, how you doing? You know? I was like, oh, this guy's so sweet. It's gonna be great. And boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. And he's a phenomenal horse. I've definitely had sweat and tears and called everyone in my horse arsenal of mentors of what do I do, and I'm not good enough and I can't make anything of this horse. And I just, you know, he's definitely turned into a special horse though, for sure. Very, very happy to have him.
Yeah, they say the most difficult horses can turn into the best ones. So, kind of, we want to learn more about Dapper Dan and why he's so special to you and what made him so difficult and just his story coming up to this point and how you were able to ride him through a protest.
Yeah, well, backstory on this guy. I saw him on Craigslist and he was listed for like $500, I think. And I was like, okay, well, it's a 3 hour long drive, but like, I'm going to hitch up the trailer. He sounds like a cool dude. And they had him listed at like 15.2 or something like that. So when I got there, I was like, yeah, no, that's not 15.2. That's a big old horse right there. And I should have kind of known. The people that had him, you know, he was halter broke at that time, you know, but he wasn't started or anything like that. And the place I got him from did like rain cow and mules. Mule people are like notorious for being amazing with like hard to handle anything, right? So I should have taken note when they were like, oh yeah, well, he tore down half of our barn. um so when I got him, the lady was like, oh hey, did you notice that he has one ear that's like, it doesn't perk up all the way, it's like floppy down to the side? And apparently they had a huge vet bill because, you know, he severed that nerve in his head. And and so now he has this sort of floppy bill, and they're like, yeah, no, you can, we're just gonna sell him. So, and then too, when I saw him, I was like, oh man, it's a steal of a horse, I want him, of course. And she's like, let me just call my boss to see if there's any tricks for getting him in the trailer, because I just don't want him to like tear anything up. So I was like, it's fine. I was like, we'll figure it out. Trust me, we get lots of horses that have never been in the trailer before. We're just gonna work it out, you know, get him in the trailer. But I'm like, I'm just sitting there staring at this horse. I'm like, he's 17 hands at this point, you know, he's I'm like, everything that I'm looking for in a project: big, pretty, substantial bone, big feet, good conformation. Watched him trot out. He looks sound. He's moving nice. I'm just like, load him up and let's go. Whew. Well, I got a trailer and I got that guy home. I was so wrong. It was just the first month that I had that horse. I can't tell you how much of my stuff got destroyed. I mean, to the point where it wasn't even me just trying to do anything with him. It was just, you know, throwing him out in the paddock and just watching him tear down fence lines, and I put him in a stall at one point, and, you know, just to like do something and like walk to my tack room or something. And he tried to tear down my stall. I had a huge vet bill my first week having him, where he basically, you know, ended up with almost the same injury on the other side. And I spent another, you know, $600 getting him sutured back up at the vet. So he was a really sort of hard horse, where he said no, he meant no. Like, there was just no open place to have a dialogue with him, which was really interesting because he was so friendly. He's just this nice, sweet guy. And, you know, I keep horses not stabled, but out in paddocks, or they're just loose, you know, around the ranch. And so he'd always be the first to like walk up to you and put it on top of your shoulder and be like, hey, what's going on, human? You know, like, what we're doing today. But like, when that horse said no, oh, you better watch out when that horse says no. He was just a really, really explosive sort of guy, and like nothing seemed to work. You know, I called mentors and stuff about him, and, you know, something that would take me a day, like kind of put the start on a colt with, he would just say no, and there was no talking about it. Everything was just trying to like not have an argument. And it was really hard, like I said, I cried and I was like, I'm not good enough and I don't know what to do. And what that horse was, with the size he was almost a horse where it's like, this is a guy that you euthanize and you walk away from, because he's damaging so many things and we can't kind of get control of it. And then I just kind of thought about it and I was like, I really do like this horse. He's hard as hell to work with, but like I like his personality and I like who he is underneath all of that. So I just kind of said, well, we're going to be able to sell him. I lost all my money. Just suck it up, and just ride him, because at the maybe I was like, I'll just keep him for myself, because what's the chance? I'm never going to be able to afford a horse that's this big, this pretty, and has this type of bone and this sort of movement, and he's something that I can ride in both sides. I can throw my monoflap on him and jump him and everybody thinks he's a big fancy warm blood, or I can throw my stock saddle on him and go do some work around the ranch. And as I just rode him, and that's kind of where it clicked for me. I just need to spend time with this horse. I just need to keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And he started out a 10%er, where like 10% of the time he was good. The rest of this, everybody watch out, don't ride. Cause yeah. And then it was a 20%, and then a 50%. It's like this 80-90% horse. And here we are 2 years later, and he's like my go-to guy to pony from, to help me start colts, to, do stuff like this, where the reason why I kind of wanted to have my own personal horse that's bomb proof. Now I know there's really no bomb proof horse out there, but just for lack of better terms to describe, I'm going to say bomb proof, is so that I could go out and reach people in communities. Like I did an event with my sister, who's actually San Francisco police officer, and we went out and we brought horses into the community and gave kids their first chance at seeing horses. And he has to be really solid to do stuff like that, because we're in San Francisco in the housing authority in the worst part of the city. And, you've got buses flying past and cars with loud music, and the kids are throwing water balloons and doing all kinds of stuff that shouldn't be done around horses. And, Dapper he takes it all in stride. He's really turned into this really, I'd say 95% solid horse that saves my butt. I'm definitely really in love with this guy, and I'm so glad that I sell him, because last November we lost the lease to our ranch, and I kind of ended up in 30 days dispersing everything that we owned. And my husband was like, Brianna, sell the horse. He's super solid. I could get a lot of money for him at this point. I've had offers on him. He's like, we could pay off our debt and we're going to start fresh somewhere. And I just said, no, I have a feeling, I've never gotten to have my own personal horse like this before. I keep this horse. And he was like, I need the money. And I told him no. And I was like, I'm keeping him. I just have a feeling that I'm going to be able to do something on this horse that even with the same amount of time, I'm not going to be able to do on something else. And I kept him. And I guess this moment right here is that feeling that I was experiencing.
That's wild. And I love that story. And I am a fan of both you and Dapper Dan. Like, I loved seeing him walking down the streets, and he was so chill and nothing seemed to faze him. And there's like photos of like little kids coming up to like pet him. And I'm sure it was really exciting for a lot of those younger kids who probably don't get to see horses very often. And it's really cool to hear, a horse that I've never heard of a horse trying to tear down as much as he has. But,
it was
to go from
to see. It was a first for me too, to watch a horse use their butt as a battering ram to get out of a stall.
That is insane. So would you consider him the horse that really made you the rider you are today? Or is there another special horse or is there multiple horses that kind of helped, make you who you are as a rider?
I think there's multiple horses. And that's why I love to do what I do. I went from being like, I want to jump, I want to go to the Olympics, I want to do this, to like being really, I was really sad at first, that I was like paying my little rent and everything, but all my friends, they're like, oh, hey, yeah, we're going out our first time intermediate this time. Come on out, Brianna. Or like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, I can't. We're going to a trail trials in the hills and I'm going to go ride trail horses, and that's kind of, I was really sad at first for a long time. But then as I started to work with these different horses, and it's not like I have a lot of horses, I might do like maybe 10 horses, 12 horses in a year or something like that. But I started to realize how much I was learning and how much I really enjoyed meeting all these different horse personalities. And it goes back to like, we as horse people learn something new from every horse, and we learn something new every time we step on a horse. And it's this amazing, really exciting experience, you know? So every horse I've ever sat on has taught me something. But my mare that I rescued, honestly, she was a stereotypical off the track thoroughbred. And I'm not trying to link couple all off the track thoroughbreds together or say they're bad. I love them. You know, they're one of my favorites. But I'm talking about like in a bad conversation, when you talk about the bad of an off the track thoroughbred, she was stereotypically that, you know, and she's really hot and she's this ticking time bomb. And some riding her and trying to put her together is like firing off a bullet into a steel container and watching it ricochet. That is but in between your legs sometimes. But she's, you know, I went from the horse that was tripped to this mare that has all this incredible scope, and she'll jump anything you put in front of her, but you better have some stick. You better have your heels down and your head up, and you better be sitting up, because the moves that come with that mare, she's, you know, great now, and I actually even use her for little kiddo lessons and stuff, but you better have some stick and you better ride right, because you're gonna that mare off in a heartbeat. So she taught me a lot. Dapper taught me a lot about patience. Dapper taught me a lot about, you know, I mean, he was the main horse. Is like, as soon as you think you know something and you're getting kind of good, you need to have a little bit of humbling experience. Dapper was my humbling experience. Ahaha, you think that you can start a colt and get on its back and teach it how to steer? Oh, let me show you otherwise, my good darling. You know, I thought, I was like, if I'm qualified to do anything, I think I can put the first ride on and just say, hey, bring your nose here. Body follows nose. Good job. Let's go. Dapper's like, you thought you were good enough to do that? Psh, pshaw to you, human. You know, so I've definitely learned something from every horse in my life. Dapper and my mare, hands down, are the most influential horses that have made a difference in my ride, though. And they're two completely separate things. Dapper is the calm and whoa and easy to go, and my mare is hot and you better, you know, be ready for the ride. So I think I've got a mix of the best of both worlds.
You know, and you don't call yourself a professional horse trainer, but I think you are on such the right track to do such a thing, because you have that experience and you have the mindset of being willing to say, okay, I have learned something from every horse and I'm still learning. And I think that's something to be said, and a lot of really, really great trainers would say the exact same things.
Oh yeah, well thank you. I mean, I hope I can be on that level someday. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever even had the thought that I wanted to be a professional trainer. I just always wanted to do right by the horse and learn as much as I can to be the best rider I can. And um, you know, that's kind of sort of segued into, I mean, we all have to eat, you know, and of course, I want to see horses treated right. So when people ask me questions, you know, hey, can you help me with this? Of course I can help you with that. You know, like, let me show you. Let's not think about this with our human brains. Let's talk about how horses think and how horses learn, and having a dialogue and conversation. And I think that's one thing that I always felt wasn't happening when I took lessons, or when the times in my life where I have been able to work under someone, is like everything happens so quickly and everybody's on such a time schedule that there's no ability to just sit down and just watch the horses and talk about how they learn, or to see how they function, or what's best for that animal, and you know what they're thinking. And I feel like when we kind of take a step back and think about it like that, you know, all of us are really trainers. You know, all of us really are, and all of us have something to learn and give every single day, right?
I think this conversation we're having with this podcast is so great, considering we just talked with Warwick Schiller, like we mentioned earlier, and he has the same kind of opinion, and just like listening to the horse and what's the horse trying to tell you. And I think that's the most important part of owning a horse and being a rider. And just, you know, you have to listen to the horse, and it's cool to hear it over and over again from all these different people in all these different walks of life doing different things with horses. And it makes me happy for the industry to hear so many people saying that.
Once again, I'm going to repeat, horsemanship is a language that transcends all disciplines. It's Let's just
Absolutely.
go back to the horse. Everything you're going to say, take it back to the horse. Let's talk about the horse.
Yeah, and I think that there needs to be more of that, in the horse industry and sharing, the knowledge and being willing to, if somebody comes up to you with a question, be able to answer that question openly and, not necessarily have to charge money for the
Hmm.
question. I know that there are some trainers out there who, I mean, the horse industry is hard to make money in. And so any chance you can get to make money, so some trainers charge for every little bit of knowledge that they have, but I think it needs to be a little bit more accessible. So, like you said, you grew up, it was hard to afford the horse industry. So I think it needs to be a little bit more accessible. And we need to do a little bit more of those types of things of sharing knowledge and listening to the horse and just being horsemen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, trainers' time are worth the money for, the knowledge and experience that you do have. I definitely think people should be uh, charged for gaining knowledge in situations like that. I definitely don't want to come off like that, like I'm against that, but I just think that we should have more of a welcoming community, you know, be a little bit more open to answer those questions for your clients, because that was a big deal for me. Is I just remember my first trainer as a kid, and I'd have all these questions and she'd never want to answer them, and I was just that kind of annoying little kid to say, why don't I want to make a little small circle with my horse, or why is it when we do a bending line we do this, and like I was not trying to, sincerely wanted to learn, so I want trainers and people to recognize that, and really give people the information to become better horses, and so maybe this world wouldn't be such a closed off sort of place, because so many people feel like they can get in over their heads with horses, and maybe it's because we don't have a lot of people don't have a basic understanding, and I feel like that's something that should be common in the horse world, not just something that's limited to trainers, because every time we lead our horse out of the stall, we're training it. And we're having a dialogue. Everything we do, just you walking in your horse's stall, is you're having a conversation, you're having a dialogue. So, I mean, it seems like it would help the industry and people as a whole if we just facilitated that, helping people understand that everything we do is a dialogue with them in a training moment.
Well, and I think kind of going off of that, I know when I was in the horse show world, I stepped away from it back in 2011, but anytime that like I saw a horse trainer doing something in the warm-up pen, and like if I could just ask like, wait, why do you do that? Like what are you doing for that? And if they were, some of them were amazing, and even though I didn't train with them or work under them, like they were like, "Oh, I do it because of this." And that kind of stuff like just sticks with me forever. And when I see other people,
Yeah.
who maybe don't have trainers to work with, who aren't fortunate enough to have a horse in training all the time, I am such a huge supporter in horse trainers who like allow that kind of questioning when they're at a horse show. Obviously, when they're not trying to get ready to show and they're busy with their
Yeah.
customers, but like it's so great when you can see somebody who's clearly new to the horse show arena, and they can go up to somebody who's won 60 world championships and just be like, but why do you do that? And then them go, oh, because of, X, Y, and Z. And it's really cool to see that. And I hope that we see more of it in the horse show world, but just in the horse industry in general.
I agree 100%. That just you taking 10 minutes out of your day for someone like me is huge. I'm not a person where at this point in my life, I'd like to say that I'm doing well enough to, have make my mortgage payment and everything. But I don't have money to go out and take lessons, and I want to better myself. I want to educate myself. So here I am. I'm in the place where maybe if I'm lucky, afford to take like 2 or 3 lessons in a year. I want to make the most of it. So I want also not have it be word vomit as well, because I know that a lot of times when you teach consistently, it can be very easy to get kind of on a like, this is how we do it, you know what I mean? And you go through your regular spiel and everything like that, but actually um, really digging and talking to somebody about the hows and whys, and making sure that that's the way that you're teaching, because that one lesson that I had every couple of months is going to be, I'm going to be going back to it and feeding off of it and trying to better myself at home for months because of it. So I think that's something that's really important, that we facilitate here in the horse world, is these professionals taking time to really help people improve themselves.
So kind of going to the current present time, these last couple of weeks has been insane for you. You blew up on social media. I think you've had probably every news station in the United States contacting you. International fame over a couple of photos of you, doing something that, that was a part of history, really. I mean, we were talking about this and that photo that has been circulating social media is going to go down in history during the civil rights movement that's going on. But did you realize what kind of attention you would get by bringing a horse to a protest that had that much, support behind it and just media coverage and all that stuff?
No. There's no way that I could have ever predicted or imagined this. I mean, exactly what I wanted to happen happened, but I just didn't realize it would be so big. I felt so powerless. The night before, I was sitting in bed with my husband and watching the video again of what happened to George Floyd, and I'm sitting there thinking this is no different from when I was like 13 years old my freshman year in high school, and I watched the same thing pretty much happen to Oscar Grant, and I was down there protesting for Oscar Grant and, trying to do all these things to make this change in my community. And then here I am, I'm 25 years old sitting in bed with my husband and I have a baby and it's the same thing happening. I'm like, what's going on? Like, no, this has to change. And I'm like, but I'm just Brianna. I'm powerless. Who the heck am I? Even when I was kind of more of an activist in my community and really involved, that didn't make a difference. So good luck to me doing anything now. But then I kind of thought about a phrase that I always talk to my husband about. We talk world change, like, is the world ever really going to change? And I always be like, if it was going to change, we would all stick to what we're really good at, do a really good job at it, make the biggest difference we can within what it is that we do, and then that would feed off of each other, and the world would go round. So yeah, I'm not a doctor or a lawyer or something like that makes that sort of impact. I'm not a politician or something, but I'm like, where I know my life's goal is, helping inner city youth, help getting more, inclusion in the horse world. Like, this is where I'm going to make my difference. So I was like, okay, so my place of power is on this horse. Nobody can ignore a Black girl on this big horse. Like, there's no amount of ignoring. You can ignore the Black Lives Matters movement all you want. But if you see a girl on a horse that's Black walking through the middle of the street with Black Lives Matter signs, I don't care who you are, you're going to look at it. So I kind of had that thought that, like, okay, if I go down there, instead of, focusing on the destruction that may happen, because I'm like, wow, people focus more on that than the fact that somebody died. I was like, let's see if I can kind of change the narrative and give them something else to look at. So I definitely thought that I would take the local news. I thought I'd see myself on, Cron 4 and everything like that. And I'd go through local people's Instas and that's really what I thought would happen. And that was what my goal was. I had no idea that I have people that are calling me from Germany, wanting to do all these different things and talk about and seeing this image go worldwide. I don't even have words. It's easy. I'm still digesting. So I don't even know how I feel about this whole thing yet, honestly.
Yeah, it had to have been. I couldn't imagine going from just being like who I am, where I can live a very private life and go out and nobody knows, who I am or what I do and all that stuff. And then just like being blown up to where you have international like recognition. But I'm so happy that we did see that photo, because I'm so happy that we can have this conversation. And we'll go into a little bit, here in a minute about what you're doing for your community and just to get more people of color involved in the horse industry. And I'm really excited about that. But we were so happy that you did that so that we could get to talk to you, because it's so cool to talk with other people who are just passionate about horses and everything in general. And I think it's also important to note that you said earlier that your sister's a police officer. So not to like get into anything too much, but it's great to see that, I think I saw in another interview that you said your sister's, why she's a police officer because she wants to change too. And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something where I've been asked the question of like, oh, well, how does it feel to have a sister that's 5'0"? How does it, you guys must have some interesting conversations going back and forth, being opposite sides of the issue. And I'm like, whoa there, Philly, hold on, easy there. We are not actually on opposite sides of this issue at all. We are on the same side, having the exact same conversation as everybody else. The only difference between me and my sister is my place of power is sitting on top of my horse's back. My sister's place of power, she chose to become a police officer and hopefully make a change with. We're on the same side of this issue. Blatantly simple, easy as that.
I love that. So kind of going off that, let's talk a little bit about the Humble Project, which is something that you've been really passionate about. Can you tell our listeners exactly what it is?
Yes. The Humble Horsemanship Project is something that I have been working on, honestly, for probably the last 5 years. I always tell folks, like, I've always had two dreams in my life, and one was to be, go to the Olympics and compete in jumping, but we know how likely is that ever to happen. My other one that I'm going to not even call a dream, it's a goal because it's to me attainable, is to have a long-standing riding program that caters to inner city youth and people of color specifically, and just offers them a chance to learn and a chance to level the playing field a little bit. I want to offer horseback riding and horsemanship classes to those people completely free of cost. And I hope, this program to being able to follow these kids up through their careers and offer, professional contacts and support, so that, if we do have a kid that comes up through the program and we're starting out with vaulting saucer singles and learning to on a lunge line and how to put their bodies and hands and airplane out to the side and follow them to, one of these kids becoming a show jumper and knowing that they were like me. They don't have money to have breeches, and like they don't have money to have the tall boots and stuff like that, and helping to be able to provide that just so they feel comfortable enough to go out and be able to get a job and work. I want to provide basically a bridging of that gap there, provide some support so that if I have a kid that's a hard worker, because you know what, all of them aren't going to deserve that help. The fact of the matter is you have to work and you have to work hard. But for those kids that were like me, where I'm willing to go hungry for my horse, I'm willing to work 15 hours a day and I want this that bad, I want to provide that support that's going to give them that foothold to be able to make that professional connection. And when they're ready to go off, I'd like to see this program grow even more and say, hey, can we sponsor this kid, and get them started in the industry here? I'd like to really create something long-standing and multifaceted in my community here. But we're starting by just offering a way to get into it, because so many kids have that image in their head of like, oh, I want a pony, I want to do this, and we want to be able to provide a space that they feel comfortable in, and where socioeconomic things aren't a problem in getting into horses.
Well, and I think, like you said, with the kids, you have to work hard. And I know myself, like I was a barn rat, quote unquote, and I was riding anything and everything I could growing up. But it really, and not to brag about it or anything, but it really did create a work ethic. And
Yeah.
I think it helped me succeed in life. And I credit my horse trainer who made me get up at 4:30 in the morning to get ready for a horse show and, make sure that I cleaned the stalls and fed the horses and watered and, did this and that and all that. And it really sets you up for success. And I love that you are bringing more people into this industry so that they can learn and they can just build and just become the best person that they can be with, the help of the horses.
Yeah. So for my program, I always say that in Humble, we want to inspire the futures by using horses as a medium. The lessons that you learn in the horse world are no different from what these kids need in life. So regardless of if I'm able to if I have a group of 50 kids and only 5 of them are going to really be ones that want to stick with it and do something, the sort of program like this in the kind of community that I'm in here in the Bay Area and in Oakland, um, this is going to help people on lots of different fronts. We all know that you get a sense of responsibility, that work ethic, there's so many lessons that can be learned from horses. And we all know that horses are nothing but a mirror, right? They don't do anything but put up a mirror to who we are. They don't do anything but mirror our energy and, our movements and how we feel as herd animals. That's just what they do. And for kids like this, where some you know, these kids are coming from hard situations and hard backgrounds and stuff like that. It can be very hard to reach some of these children because of things they've had happen or what's going on in their lives. And it's not always taken too well to come at a kid or a person and be like, hey, whoa there, calm down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, you need to control your emotions. You need to have respect. And you know what? You can't always reach them like that, but that horse can. You know, throw somebody in a pen with a horse that's a little bit more spooky or sketchy in a round pen and say, hey, hun, go up and touch that horse. And that horse takes flight every single time they get within, you know, their little bubble that they have. They won't let them anywhere near close. Okay, now try this. Woosah. Breathe in, calm your energy down, move a little bit slower, you know, calm down. And that horse is able to help me teach that lesson. That's something that, you know, can maybe keep a kid from going into the criminal justice system, you know, allow them to look deeply within themselves and do it in a non-judgmental way, because the horse is the one telling them that, not me. So help them control their temper. I mean, there's so many different life lessons that the kids can learn through this. And it's a tool that I think that our community needs access to.
Yeah, and I think as horse people, I mean, the three of us and any other horse person who listens to this knows this, that horses are such great teachers and such great lesson givers, in the fact that, like you said, they mirror you. And if a child is going through something, that horse can easily help them through it a lot better than maybe another person can. So with that being said, has there been a special moment in this project that you've enjoyed the most and that you look back on and it kind of just sparks a memory in your mind? Or is it just new enough that you don't quite have that yet?
You know, I've honestly had so many experiences with kids because this, like I said, this is a plan that I've had for a very long time. I've never had the funding and backing before this to really like create a full program around this, you know, but throughout the last couple of years, I try to, anytime I have a chance, you know, like I did a summer where I was running summer camps, and one of the sessions that I did, I was able to bring about 10 inner city youth out to the country, and you know, we went through a camp, you know, and got the kids into horses and did that sort of thing. And I mean, we've had so many amazing experiences like that, and there's not exactly one that sticks out to me, but all of the kids are different at the end of it, you know. And that's the biggest thing for me, and that's what makes me smile, is it mirrors why I love doing what I do with horses. I love taking in something that in the horse industry is worth nothing to someone, absolutely nothing, and turning it into something that's useful, that has a job, that's happy. And so even I did an interview the other day where the local news station came out, and they brought a kid that I had never met before, this little boy that was like 8 years old, and they wanted to see, you know, a video me doing a lesson and see kind of what I do out there on the ranch. And oh, they gave me the hardest kid ever. So he was, honestly, he didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to engage, you know, like mom was there and I'd say, hey, let's go grab a horse. And he said, no. Okay, well, so I take a sec down and I, you know, well, what do you like to do? Sit at home. Well, what do you do when you're sitting at home? Be bored. Literally the hardest kid, you know, to try to connect with there. And I finally was just like, okay, I'm not connecting to him on this basis. And I got a little tough with him. I was like, all right. I'm like, either you need to leave or you're going to come grab this horse with, because this is what we're here to do. And so he is fine, and picks up his feet, you know, goes and gets up and grabs snatches the rope out of my hand. I go, excuse me, that is not how we do things. You will politely take this from me. And he's dragging his feet, and pull your shoulders back and walk like a man. You don't get to drag your feet, you know? So he started out like that. And that was kind of the back and forth that we had. And then I was able to work with him with Dapper a little bit. And he got on that horse, and that really hard facade, that kid that's, you know, trying to be all gruff and manly and everything like that, turned into this smile. And so you could see that he was trying to hold it in. He was trying so hard to keep his face straight, and like he was not enjoying what was going on. And then that smile slowly starts to creep on his face. And you know that experience of that smile that you cannot even hold in. And then pretty soon he's got all his teeth showing, and I'm high-fiving, and I'm like, yeah, good job. And like that right there, that experience, you know, of seeing this kid that was so closed off and so just against everything and interaction. And then he's like, well, what are we doing next? And why do you do this? And I like to do this. And can I do that? And to see him like really come alive and see who this child was, he didn't want me to know any part of him before. And now he's sharing with me the school, his friends, and he has this friend that's going to do that. And the horse did that in a span of an hour. That's pretty amazing. I'm sure that you could go to some therapist, that isn't able to make that much leadway with a kid with like 10 sessions. And it's not what I'm doing. The horse did that. That is amazing. And so I have those experiences over and over and over again with this. It's not one isolated experience. And that's why I like doing what I like to do. They say if you do what you love, you never really work a day in your life, which really isn't true because all of this is a maddening amount of work, but I still have a smile on my face and with 3 hours of sleep and huge bags under my eyes. So I'll just go with that.
That story gives me chills. It just makes me, I've seen it firsthand with like kids who, they might have been at risk or whatever. And they just get near a horse and their whole personality changes. And they're like, you can see this calmness come over and they feel relaxed and they feel, secure and safe with this, 1,200-pound animal, which, that's pretty crazy because a lot of people are afraid of them because they're so big. But it's just like, it's amazing how you can kind of break down that hard exterior that they've had to have because that's how they survive. And it's
humble. They're humbling. They're humbling creatures.
It's amazing.
Kids from humble being. We're taking kids from humble means and having a humbling experience with the horse. That's what this is all about.
It's awesome. So how can people get involved with the Humble Project? Where can they reach you? Where can they find you to learn more about you and what you're doing?
You can go online to www.mulattomeadows.com/humble and find out all the different things that we're doing. We're going to be having lots of different projects and fundraisers coming up. We do have a GoFundMe that's there as well. But if you're a professional in the industry or just wanting to volunteer some tack or time, anything that you have is going to help at this point. At this point in our program, we're really getting kids on, and I'm a big person for developing a seat and everything like that. So the way I teach is I'm using vaulting singles and, nice thick pads for the horses. So the kids learning that way. But I do expect and want this program to grow into more discipline specific, areas of riding. So we will need, actual tack and stuff going forward in the future. And for professionals, I'd love for professionals to reach out to me the same way, host a clinic or something like that at your barn with proceeds going to these kids. I figure that's a really great way for people to start, and also lots of community, like we're all going to have dialogue. We're all going to talk to friends and all of this stuff. And that's kind of the kind of thing that I want to see happen. So the program grows and the kids grow with it. I can say, hey, Warwick, I've got this awesome kid that's working their butt off, and he's trying, man. He's been working for years, and he's finally to a place. He's got this down. And do you have any working student positions in your barn, even ground floor, like someone to clean? Like this kid he'll clean all your tack. He'll do this. I want to continue to foster relationships like that with professionals in the industry so I can make those phone calls and provide opportunities for these kids and maybe get them, a lot of kids I've met here, they've never even been out the Bay Area, so I want to see this as something big, where these trainers see what we're doing and can kid, maybe they're going to get to go to the UK and get a really cool working student opportunity that we know those are out there, and that kids from different backgrounds do have opportunities to do stuff like that. So the whole horse community is really going to help. It's not just something that's on me. This is, definitely all the people that can get on board. We can make this as little or as big, or as little a change or as big a change as the horse community wants to make this at this point.
No, I think that's great. And I know that I get a lot of people that either just on Facebook or even through, my connections with Horse and Rider that are always asking like, hey, do you know somebody that wants to, clean stalls at this horse show or do whatever? And now I know exactly who I'm going to send them to, because I'm sure that you have a whole list of people that would be fantastic for those kinds of up and coming jobs.
Oh, yes, definitely coming forward in the future here. I would love people to reach out to me for things like that, because I want to provide those opportunities, and I know that kid doesn't have the, maybe doesn't have enough money for the plane ticket to get there, and be able to take in that opportunity. And I want to help provide that. I know you don't have the to look presentable here. Hey, we've got, this donated tack. Let me let me get you a couple of shirts and a couple pairs of breeches, and here's a pair of boots so you can go out and work for what you want. I want to be that person.
I love that. We'll be sure to share more information about what you're doing on our website so that people who want to get involved or just want to learn more about what you're doing can easily access that. So we'll be sure to include that. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited when we could get in touch with you because you have inspired us so much, and we are so happy that we are having the conversation about diversity and getting more people of color and different races involved in the horse industry because it's so important, and we're so happy that you had time to talk to us.
Oh, well, thank you guys. I mean, this is something that is so important to me, and it's like I'm almost in tears now that it's like it's important to other people too. It's so cool and great. So thank you guys for facilitating this conversation. Thank you for all of your awesome questions and your help with all of this. And I'm really excited to see all the good that comes from it because I feel some good coming.
Thank you guys for tuning into the Ride Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com. If you guys have any questions or comments, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@aimmedia.com. We want to hear from you guys.
And if you like what you're listening to, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.
How many stars, Michaela?
5 stars, please.